Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Coleman. Joining me right now is Max Cohen and Dan Crawford from HammyN.com and the Green Pole Podcast. This is our preview of Fulham's match on Sunday against Liverpool. This should be an interesting show to talk about this match, and I look forward to talking to my co-hosts about it. Probably for the next 30 to 45 minutes, this should be an interesting episode. I do want to mention before I bring them both on and start the show, please do subscribe on YouTube and like this episode. It would help get our numbers up on YouTube. I would really much appreciate that. Okay, guys, let's get to it. And Mr. Crawford, I'm going to start with you. How are you doing? And what are your thoughts about this match tomorrow?
I'm less feisty than you are, Russ. Hi. Nice to see Max over there. Yeah. What are my thoughts? Well, I think we better play better than in the last two games. Felt like we only played for about 20 minutes on Tuesday night. It feels like a long time ago now, that game.
Yeah.
I thought, well, we could do something against Liverpool, but I said that for the last two matches, and I was wrong. So I don't really know what to think. Interesting that Kenny Tete is nailed on to be in the matchday squad. It seems just a question of whether he's going to start. That couldn't come quickly enough for me. Really, we've really missed Kenny Tete, and it'll be interesting to see precisely what Silva does to sort of rejig things around, because coming away, even though we were quite abject, I felt in an attacking sense for a long time at the Emirates, you still felt like that was another one that slipped away.
Yeah.
And I'll throw over to Senor Cohen now, because he will tell me just how many points Fulham have tossed in the trash this season.
Go ahead, Max.
Oh, far too many. But I don't know. I think, we actually played well against Liverpool. They haven't thrashed us, I can't remember, in recent memory. And let's not forget how we almost won away at Anfield in their first fixture, and how last time we played them at home in the league, it was 1-1 at halftime. So, and then of course they pulled away. But I don't think we're going to be overawed by the occasion. I think Silva wants to prove a point. And I think that the home match suits us better, perhaps, than the way we went to the Emirates. I think we're too negative at times. As Dan mentioned, we only played for a 20-minute spell, arguably. I am worried, though, because Arsenal dropped points today. I think Liverpool will be motivated for this, and I think they want to wrap this title up as quickly as possible and start their celebration. So I don't – normally you're playing a team like this and they have an 11-point lead or whatever in the league, you could maybe expect Liverpool to take their foot off the gas, but they're out of every single other competition, right? They have nothing else going for them other than the Premier League. So I think it's going to be a nervy start. We have to remain 0-0 as long as we can.
Okay, very interesting stuff. Over to you, back to you, Max. I just want to share my thoughts in 1 second, because you were talking about how Fulham played against Arsenal. Dan has mentioned this as well. I will say this to the people that have been commenting about how poorly Fulham played. I disagree with that. I just think that they were set up to play a certain way and did not really do enough going forward. But I thought defensively they were set up fairly well until they gave up a goal. And then everything fell apart. I guess in this second half, a little bit from that, then you give up the second goal. They were poor goals to give up, but I thought defensively they played fairly solid. This match is its own thing. And I've actually been seeing a lot of talk about the fact that Fulham struggle after international breaks. So that gives you Crystal Palace, that gives you Arsenal. Then they usually bounce back in the third match. The third match is against Liverpool. So maybe it's time to bounce back. Mr. Crawford, let's get going talking about Liverpool. What do you make of this team coming into Craven Cottage?
I think they're very beatable. I've got to be honest with you. I watched the Merseyside derby. Thought Everton should have won. There's a lot of chatter this summer about Fulham need a striker. Let's sign Beto. There's one Fulham account. He knows who he is. I'm not going to give his name away, but the Fulham fan news fella, he loved Beto. He loved him. Well, Beto missed at least 2 sitters in that game. He only seems able to score against Fulham from a yard out. Let's not revisit that one. I think Max is absolutely right. We should have won at Anfield. I was there. We played very well. Jorge Cuenca had an outstanding game on his full Premier League debut until that last 10 minutes. We had chances, really good chances. I think Liverpool are beatable. I think they've had a great season in the league. They did that thing that foreign managers do when they first come into the Premier League and undervalued the FA Cup. Rafa Benitez did it. Arne Slot did it. Took it for granted at Plymouth. Got beaten by Argyle, who are scrambling to stay in the Championship. They played 2 outstanding legs against that sports washing team from the capital of France, and went out on penalties, deservedly. I felt that's not to say that Liverpool don't have weapons. They're clearly an outstanding side, but I think they can be got at. Andy Robertson, we've seen, takes risks. Trent Alexander-Arnold is not a right back, neither is Curtis Jones. You have Alisson having to pass the concussion protocol. So, yes, well said, Toffee Blue Cast. I do like the proper side of Merseyside is in the house.
That's right. These are great guys, and thank you guys for sharing that.
No, seriously. And I do think, if I can digress just for a second, if Everton women can play at Goodison Park, that's fantastic. That would be wonderful. The 2 Liverpool centre-backs, and there's the point. Liverpool centre-backs have looked dodgy all season. Any of them, when you make them work. And let's not talk about, I remember that game at Anfield. There was all sorts of conjecture about how Harry Wilson was going away from goal. That's not a red card. It's just clear as day a red card. They looked for reasons not to send Robertson off. That's what you get at Anfield. And my biggest worry about this game is not what Liverpool can put on the field, not what they can do, because if they play at their top level, they'll beat us. That's clear. What my biggest worry is Mr. Kavanagh and his decision-making. He's there. I'm sure you're going to come to it. Yep. When I saw that, I thought I'll just give my ticket to somebody else and, sit there on watch it and fume in the pub or something. And it'll just save a lot of time. Look, Liverpool are an outstanding side for all of that. It's a real shame that Harvey Elliott won't get the reception he deserves once again for his disgraceful behaviour towards Fulham Football Club, disabled people, people of colour, and everybody else. Might be a gifted footballer, but you can sort of hold it and be classy as well. Look, this is a great fixture. There's a lot of Fulham history in this fixture. And I'd like to do well. And I'm just winding up the good people of the red side of Merseyside. Many of them are my friends, and my phone is already going off. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Over to you, Max. I want to get your thoughts on Liverpool. I think Dan got us going pretty good. Listen, I have a lot of respect for Liverpool. I do. I'm talking about they are going to win the league, and they're going to be deserved winners of the league. But I agree with Dan. I think there's an opportunity here for Fulham to win this match, not just get a draw. I think it's important that Fulham actually win this, because I think it changes a lot if they can win this match. And I think there's an opportunity here. What do you make of Liverpool heading into this match?
Yeah, I think Dan brought up the right recent form, which is the Everton match. And yeah, they look beatable. It didn't look like a team who was going to stomp the league. And, it's understandable given the season they've had. You can't perform at such a high level for so long. I think we have to give credit to Arne Slot. I know he messed up in the cup, but
right,
it's been an exceptional first season. And, when managers come from abroad and to follow up Klopp, who created such a culture of winning at Liverpool that had been gone, I don't think anyone expected him to hit the ground running like he did. So I have to give credit to them. And they've had upheaval this season, right? I mean, the Trent situation, he's off to Madrid. Salah still isn't committing for a contract. Even though they've won the league with ease, and they will win the league with ease, shall I say, it hasn't been total smooth sailing. So I think there's some vulnerabilities here for us to exploit. The way Beto, put Van Dijk on ice the other night has to give either Muniz or Jimenez some comfort, and thinking if you run at them, you give them issues. I think I remember when we played them in 2019, Ryan Babel gave Van Dijk a tough time.
Yeah.
So listen, we have had success in Liverpool. They're a great side, but I think Silva has to realize that, given the disappointment of Palace, given the underwhelming performance at Arsenal, this is a game he has to circle on his calendar. And let's not forget, again, we played them first game back in the Premier League under Silva's tenure and got that 2-2 draw in August 2022. So there has to be some optimism here, and we shouldn't set up negatively, I want to say.
Okay, interesting stuff from the two of you. Listen, I just see this, as I just said earlier, as a wonderful opportunity for Fulham Football Club, because if they do find a way to get all 3 points, it sets up the matches after that. If they don't win and say they get a draw or lose, I think it's tougher. I think there's a huge positive if they can pull off this victory. Also, mentally getting over this situation with Liverpool, because they've been knocking on the door, but they've not been able to beat them. Maybe on Sunday is that day. Who knows? Max, back to you. Dan's already talked about Kavanaugh. Your thoughts?
I just hope we're not talking about him come tomorrow at this time. I hope he's not maybe that's wishful thinking, but I just don't want the referee to even be noticed. That's the best you can hope for, is that they have a quiet game. But, you know, I don't want to get into it too much. You know, we've been on the end of some poor decisions, but I think the squad has to go out there and try to ignore all of that and hope that the game is refereed fairly. That's all I have to say.
Okay, excellent. All right. Dan, back over to you. Let's talk about Marco's presser. Obviously, the massive news is Kenny Tete's availability. The question, as you've already said, will he start? Will he come off the bench? What would you do if you're Marco, if he's fit to play? Would you start him or would you have him come off the bench? I'm curious your thoughts about just that scenario. We'll go through the starting 11, but what would you do?
You got to play him. If he's fit to play, you've got to play him. You don't ease right backs into the game by giving them 20 minutes at the end. Game might be over by then. In fact, it probably will be over if unfortunately, if Castagna, there's been a bit of Castagna slander on the socials and all around, and I don't have any time for that. He's a really good right back. He's just having a tough couple of games. That can happen. But Tete offers you an awful lot in both directions. It's no coincidence that perhaps three of our poorest performances have come when Tete and Wilson, who unfortunately won't be able to play against Liverpool, and he's really upset about that for very obvious reasons, have not been in the lineup. So those were the two really interesting things of very early in Silva's press conference, that he addressed that, and the fact that they're both integrated and ready. And I don't know that Harry will make Bournemouth, which again he'll be really motivated for. We'll see. But yeah, I'd be playing Kenny Tete all day long. He's just different gravy, as we say over it.
I totally agree with that, Dan. Max, what about you? Would you play him right off the bat? Would you start him? He has not played in a while, but this is an important match. So what would you do?
I agree with Dan. If he's fit to be in the squad, he should be fit to start. On the other hand, it is a bit of an intimidating prospect. You're out for months and your first game back is the league leaders. But that's the kind of right back Kenny Tete is. He doesn't relish a challenge, and there's no doubt about it. He's our number one choice right back. We've seen Castagna struggle. I think the depressing stuff about the Arsenal match was that he made Martinelli look like a real good player. And I've been listening to Arsenal supporters for months, lambasting that Martinelli was their best option after Saka got injured. And then to see Martinelli just give Castagna a torrid time. And it's not just Martinelli. It's been a lot of other wingers, left wingers throughout the season. We're thinking about Anthony Gordon away at Newcastle and what we saw there. Yeah, I don't want to get too hard on Castagna. I agree with Dan. He's a quality right back. And even at the end of last season, he won the starting spot from Tete. He's a Belgium international. He's no poor player, but I think if you have the option of Tete and Castagna, Tete has to start if he's fit.
Okay. All right. Before we really break down this match, one final topic for both of you. Max, will go right back to you. Can we take anything away from the match at Anfield? Do we learn anything?
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's hard because it was an abnormal match being played when they have a sending off, which completely changes the trajectory of the match so early on. And it was odd that we were almost playing defensively, hanging on, in the end don't get the win. But I think the main thing we can take is not tactics, because it was such a different situation, obviously, but we can take away the confidence to not be overawed by Liverpool. And I fear that the Arsenal match, we took the wrong lessons in. I think we set up too negatively. Simple as that. We didn't threaten Arsenal until too late in the match, and even then, it showed how weak they were, and we almost got 2 goals in the final 15 minutes. But that's my main takeaway, Russ, is that we should learn that this Liverpool team, despite being by far the best team in England this year, still have vulnerabilities.
Okay. Over to you, Dan. Your thoughts on the first match? You've already mentioned it a little bit, but what do you take out of it?
Can I just say I love that comment from Karen Johnson? As a Fulham fan in general, the 90 minutes kind of gets in the way of our experience, because sometimes we're good, most of the time we're poor, and it's about the Fulham family. It might sound trite, but many of those Fulham family members have helped me grow up on the terrace, although not that much, obviously, as the two of you know. Grow up on the terraces of the Hampstead, and just on Timothy Castagno, he's actually a Fulham fan. He came and sat right in front of where I sit with his family as a teenager, and really loved it. They were interrailing around Europe, and they said, "Wouldn't it be nice if you played here someday?" And hey presto, he did. Take something from Anfield. What we take from Anfield is they're beatable. They're very beatable, and I think we would have been in a real. We're in with a real chance of winning that game, regardless of whether the red card came or not. And what I would just say, the incident in which Kenny Tete goes in with Joe Gomez was then covered by the media as, should that have been a penalty to Liverpool? Gomez actually clatters into Kenny Tete. I think it is Joe Gomez. You have to remind me. And Kenny Tete's been out ever since. So, and I was astounded at the sort of one-eyed punditry that was like, "Oh, that's a penalty for Liverpool." We've been disadvantaged since that game by not having our starting right back even in consideration, and it was a bad injury. What we take from that game is, and I slightly disagree with my good friend Max here about Arsenal. I don't think Silva set out negatively at all. I think the problem was in the execution, both because they had one day or maybe 2 training sessions to go from the 4 to the back 3, and with the changes in personnel. And you could see in the way that Marco was reacting, because the away fans at the Emirates are right opposite the visiting dugout, and that Marco doesn't. He's not the best at hiding his displeasure, and neither am I. So you could see how Marco was reacting to things. We had 3 touches in the Arsenal penalty area in the first half. I don't think he set us up to play like that.
Okay.
You can take the blame for it, and I think you'll see something different. But you can't overplay against this Liverpool side. They'll kill you. And the interesting one for me is, does Anthony Robinson start? Because Jedi is patently not fit and patently needs an operation. And we might need to take him out of the firing line here, even though he'll be desperate to play for very obvious reasons, because he's an Evertonian.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that when we get to the starting 11, because I want to focus on talking about Ryan Sessegnon, but we're not there yet. Let's now go and discuss, how does Fulham win this match? Dan, I'll go to you. What would be your game plan if you're Marco?
Exactly as Max referenced it earlier, August 2022, I think it was. Alexander Mitrovic sent Virgil van Dijk back to Glasgow, and then back across to like Coventry or somewhere, skilled him up. Get in their face. They don't like it. Lots of Liverpool centre-halves had problems at Craven Cottage. Jamie Carragher never talks about it. He got outrun by Eric Nevland. He got out-sprinted by Eric Nevland. He had to pull him down. And then he protested about it in that game where the champions of Europe, as I think they were, at that time, got absolutely dominated. How did Fulham win this game? By being smart, not by going off for the first 20 minutes and then not having anything in reserve, by playing the occasion, because Max is right. It will be an occasion. The Liverpool fans travel in numbers. They'll make noise. They're close to the record equaling 20th Premier League title, knocking Fergie and all that lot off their perch. It matters to Liverpool. Max is absolutely right about that, and he's absolutely right as well on Arne Slot and the job he's done. All I would say is we're a decent side. We're not a great side. We're not yet a top 7 side, as much as that might disappoint you, Russ, but we need to be showing steps forward and maturity in these moments, and that's on players actually like Andreas Pereira, who really has not delivered. It's also on knowing when to take the right option. It's how do we come up with a tactical plan? So I'll be interested to see the two of you and how you would pick this. We can be very fluid in a 4-3-3, a classical Dutch 1980s 4-3-3. You could do something really interesting. You could play Robinson with Sessegnon directly in front of him. That's what I might do. On the left-hand side, you could Willian and Traore probably both should be in the lineup if you can find a place for them. I think there's a case for Tom Kearney playing 60 minutes, just holding the ball there. To go back to a back 4, I think is absolutely imperative. I'm not saying that we can't play with the 3 at the back. I think it's an interesting option.
Yep.
But against certain opposition, you want to do something that they're not expecting. Jurgen Klopp was so bamboozled by the first time he came to Craven Cottage in the Premier League that he complained that we didn't water the grass. So I sent him a nice watering can, and he wrote a nice little note back, which was quite funny actually, because I sent it to Fabio, and that was a nice little interaction. So they got Fabio Carvalho and a watering can, because that was ridiculous. But look, I jest, but be smart. Recognise the strengths that they have. I worry about Salah and their wide players against our fullbacks. I do. Be tight in defensive areas, but be confident and try and play the way that Marco Silva wants to play, because that is the way that you win these games, by asking questions of ropey defenses.
Okay, Dan, and I tend to agree with you. I'll go to Max in just a second. I think the 2 takeaways I got out of what you're looking for: play smart, but play the way Marco wants to play. Is that fair?
I'm sorry, I muted myself because I thought you were going to Max. Yes.
I am going to go to Max. Okay. I actually agree with Dan. How about you, Max? Is there anything else you would do against Liverpool compared to what Dan has brought to the table?
I like that it brought up Sessegnon. I think this is the perfect match for Sess to start.
We're going to talk about that coming later. Up next.
Yeah, what else do you have to do? I think, it's spot on. We need to be street smart. You can't be caught out. You can't let Salah just run at you, and we can't switch off for one moment. That's the reality of playing against top sides. And I do think the first 15 minutes are imperative, because what we saw against Palace was we were up for the occasion, started very strong, and as Dan said, we had nothing left in reserve, or at least that's what it appeared like. So we need to pace ourselves, but too often, I think in big matches, if you go down to the big clubs, 1-0, 2-0 first half, that's kind of the match done and dusted. So I think just keep it tight for as long as we can, but pick our moments to counterattack. Traore also a player who I think needs to play as well for that to happen.
Okay, excellent stuff. All right, it's time to give our starting 11, and then we can, after we've gone through our starting 11, we can talk about what we think Marco will ultimately do. I'll get us going, and I've got some interesting choices here. So this is what I would do. Obviously, you have Leno. I would start Kenny Tete. We've already talked about it. If he's fit to play, you start him. You need him. I'm going to play Jedi if he's fit to play. My center back pairing is going to be Diop and Bassi. I'm sitting Anderson. I'm not saying that this is what Marco's going to do. This is what I would do. On the left, I'm going to go with Ryan Sessegnon. On the right, I'm going with Traore. In the middle, I'm going Berga, Lukic, and Emil Smith-Rowe, and Raul Jimenez up front. That's my starting 11. I think that gives you the power and the pace on both sides. And I think having Sessegnon and having Jedi, like I said, if he's good enough to play, fit to play, it gives you a lot of power and pace on that left-hand side. That's what I like. Dan, I'll go to you. What do you make of my starting 11? What would you do?
Oh, it's interesting. It's interesting. Sorry, I'm just writing mine down. I think I've got 11 players. So Leno in goal. If Tete's fit to play, he plays. I'd go Diop and Cuenca, actually, with Ryan Sessegnon at left back. And then Berger and Kenny. And then Traore, Willian and Smith Rowe in the 10 behind Raul Jimenez.
Raul Jimenez. That's an interesting starting 11 as well. Max, how about you? What would you do?
I like this because it seems like everyone has a different, honestly, perspective on it.
Yeah.
And I also have a slightly different lineup too. I think that, Leno, of course, in goal. I think Tete and Robinson fullbacks. I'm actually going to go Anderson and Bassi. I can't believe I'm saying this because I have, criticized them quite a bit this year, but I do think they're just the best options, honestly, for this match. I feel silly saying it, but just trust them for a big occasion. I'm going to do Lukic and Berga, holding midfielders, Pereira in front of them. And then what you said, Ross, Sessegnon, Traore, and then Jimenez up top.
Okay. See, I like the way that looks. Dan, what do you make of the Sessegnon-Robinson combo? Now, I know what you're saying, that he does not look, I'm talking about Jedi, that he's really 100% probably needs some kind of surgery at some point. That's what it seems like what's going on with him. So what would you do if you're Marco? Would you risk this kind of situation that I am saying, or would you play it safe and maybe start Sess as your left back?
Well, I think, look, I'm going on the fact that having watched Jedi for the last two games, he clearly wasn't 100% fit. Now, there are better medical minds than I that will assess the players. And actually, I don't think he can afford to leave Anthony Robinson out of a Fulham side if he's fit to play. So I think if he's fit to play and they've tested him and he's fit to play, then I'll believe them. And you could go Anthony Robinson with Sessegnon in front of him. But I'm attracted to the idea of Sessegnon as an inside right as well now.
Yep.
I mean,
you can do that.
You could even do something ridiculous and play him where he used to play for the under. Let me get this right. Under 12s or under 13s. May even have been earlier than that. If Chris or Stevie are watching, they'd be able to tell me. But actually, they may not be watching. He played as a number 10 in the youth team, in the very, and we saw how he threads balls through, like for Tom Kenny at Wembley. I think you've just got to find a way to get Ryan on the pitch, because he changed that game when he came on. He's got no fear now. We have to manage our players carefully. That's why you haven't seen much of Josh King, I think.
Yeah.
And I know the fans are calling for Josh King. Look, you just got to look at, and you've got to trust Marco. I understand that everyone's got a view, and they're right to have a view. The last few performances have been disappointing, but without Marco Silva, we wouldn't be a Premier League side. We wouldn't still be a Premier League side. He is a genius, right? And he deserves the latitude to try a few things, especially when, to be frank, the fact that we have to re-sign a 36-year-old William to get us some, it kind of shows where we are. CJ Stansfield scored again today. Russ, I won't stop on that as the negligence of
that irritates me, Dan. You know how that upsets me.
The negligence of selling of selling players and then not getting players in. So somebody like Marshall Goddard doesn't get a championship loan.
Yeah.
Right, and doesn't get the minutes that are necessary for his development. Luke Harris, for instance, scored today for Birmingham City. Luke Harris is somebody who probably won't get back into Marco's first team thinking, but he's a really good number. If you, for instance, said to shook Andreas Pereira by the hand in the summer and said, "Thank you, Andreas, we're going to send you back to Brazil for roughly what we paid for you, because you haven't really put in much effort and that's slanderous, really, from me. But it's how I feel. If you did that, then you'd have an interesting dynamic of like, and there are players coming through. So I think you have to look at how do you upgrade positions. But while Silva is sort of feeling his way without the depth in the squad, I don't think you can criticise him as strongly as some people have. And that's just my view.
Okay, so I just want to share this, and then I'll go to Max, because I then want to just focus on what we think Marco's going to do, Dan, because this is what we would do. So Chris shares this Mo Salah versus Jedi. Bring it on. Here's my counter to that. Give me our players going up against their fullbacks right now, because there's a good opportunity that Andy Robertson obviously is on one side, and you might have Curtis Jones playing a fullback that's just not his natural position. I like Fulham's advantage going up against their fullbacks. We've already talked about their center backs. I think there's an opportunity here, Dan.
Yeah, but only if you look. Chris is right. Mo Salah against anyone. Let's be clear. That's one of the best players in world football now, or in any other era. You know, and isn't it hilarious that the squatters down the road had Mo Salah and released him?
Yeah.
Isn't it hilarious? Like, let's just laugh at that for a moment. But like, you know, we will have problems, and there will be opportunities like you've outlined. I don't know. Chris will be able to tell me if Connor Bradley's fit, or
I know he's a doubt.
Right, so that is why. Yeah, I mean, he's a terrific talent, and the thing with the Liverpool academy is they've got 2 or 3 who can step in and be ready. You know, that's what the difference between the squad that Arne Slot has put out and the belief that he's put into them and where we are is like light years, right? It doesn't mean we can't win. We've had a great record. I want to give a shout out to, but if Jones is going to play right back as Chris outlines, then bring that on, mate. You know, let's see how that goes. And then I'd be tempted to switch Traore and Sessegnon around constantly to give him some real things to work on there, or even to ask Emile Smith-Rowe in my team to drift out onto the left, have the interchange and the fluidity that we had at Anfield, and that's how you actually beat teams, is by
I agree, Dan.
By coming up with problems and playing with confidence. And the problem is we're not playing with confidence at the moment.
No,
we're just a little bit. But lift your heads up. It's a huge opportunity to bloody the nose of the champions elect.
I totally agree. Okay, over to you, Max. I want to get your thoughts on what you think Marco is going to do. We've laid out 3 completely different starting 11s, which is fascinating, right? What do you think he's going to do?
Oh man, I think he wants Traore in here. I really do.
Okay.
I think that he knows Traore started the season excellent and can play up against the big boys. And let's not forget, he had a great chance at the Emirates, and he made that happen out of nothing. I think that's what Silva's going to remember, is that Traore, despite all his faults and actually finishing off chances and converting when it counts, he's the only player in this squad who can conjure something out of nothing. And against the league leaders, that's going to be crucial. So I think he's going to want to put pressure on them. And as we just talked about, Curtis Jones at right back is a huge, glaring deficiency. That's not his natural position. If you put something like Traore up against him, just put pressure on them early, and don't let them settle into a rhythm.
Okay. And listen, I agree with all that, and I agree with what Dan said. I think Dan is spot on this. I think for Fulham to win this, they have to think outside the box a little bit and put this team under pressure. Give them something that they're not expecting. But I will say this, I'm not expecting Fulham to play 3 at the back. I think that would be a mistake. I think that they have to do what Dan said earlier on in the show, is that they need to be smart, but they need to play within Marco's system and be aggressive. And I think that's what we're going to see. If it comes off, I think Fulham can get all 3 points. But the question is, will it? They have to play at their ability. If Liverpool, as Dan said at the beginning of the show, plays to their full capability, they will win this match. If they slip up a little bit, there's an opportunity for Fulham Football Club. Like I said, there are players that will not be involved in this match for Liverpool that give Fulham a little bit of an advantage. And that's going to lead for us to finish up by going to predictions. Everyone loves predictions. I'm sure my friend Chris will be predicting a Liverpool victory. I'm going to go last. I'm going to go to you, Max, first. Give me your prediction.
2-2. Just like
2-2.
August 2022. I think it's going to be exciting, action-packed, but I don't think we're going to win. But I think we give them a real run for our money.
Okay. I understand that. Mr. Crawford, where are you going on this?
Yeah, I agree. We'll give them a game, but I can't see us beating them, and I worry about the ability of Liverpool in the final third, and frankly, their season of winning big matches. Yes, they've
done
lost, that. They've lost some games. They're a seriously good football side, and I think they could punish us if we're as sloppy as we've been. So earlier on or in another place, I gave a prediction of Fulham 1, Liverpool 2, and I can't predict different scores for different outlets. So that's where I'm going.
Okay. And of course, Chris says
the slot machine
will be fired up. 2-0 to Liverpool. Interesting.
But the slot machine sometimes takes other people's money, so it's not always accurate.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to end the show with my prediction. So I've already predicted it, so it's not going to be a shock of my prediction, but I am going same scoreline, just different winner, Dan. I'm going 2-1 to Fulham. I believe in this team. I believe that this is the moment they get over that hump and they actually win a match against Liverpool. It's been a long time. So I'm going 2-1 to Fulham because I think that would give us that opportunity to stay in the race for Europe. It's getting hotter and hotter. And I predicted 7, so I have to do this. I have to predict a Fulham victory. I'm not giving up on that, Dan. I'm absolutely not.
Good for you. Why has been passionate about that? Can I just say before we wrap up the show, it's a very special day for every Fulham fan who's followed Fulham for a long time. It is obviously Sir Rodney McAree Day, which is when Rod conjured up a magnificent finish at Brunton Park. Fulham came from behind. Liam, for younger viewers, Liam Delap's father, Rory Delap, puts Carlisle in front. Carlisle, Fulham, Wigan, all going for the title and promotion from Division 3. Fulham only just survived relegation the season before, and they equalised. And Fulham had an abject first half akin to the one we watched on Tuesday night in a massive game in front of 2,500. Well, really 50,000 Fulham fans at Carlisle because everyone claims to have been there. As they would do, but they scored from a corner, a short corner, no less. A couple of minutes after the interval, a lovely ball in from Macquarie, headed down. Someone's logged in the Hamiand account. I wonder who that is. I'll have to check that one out. Elon's messing with my Hamiand account.
I don't know, Dan. Aren't you in charge of that account?
Not anymore, mate. Not anymore, obviously. Anyway. Rob McAree crosses one in, and Danny Cullop gets up at the back post, and Super Mick Conroy from a yard out scores his 23rd goal of the season. 5 minutes later, lovely ball in from Simon Morgan, headed down from Krista Warren, and Rod McAree puts in the top corner from 25 yards. There's a certain Steve Hayward and Warren Aspinall in the Carlisle side, and they gave it a real go. They hit the bar twice. Fulham held on, and that clinched promotion because they only needed one more point, which they got the following week at Mansfield, and that started the rise. So happy Rod McAree Day to everybody. I was going to read out the entire starting lineup to give them all their props, but we don't have time for that. Thanks, Russ.
Okay, great. I'm glad that you shared that, Dan. Very well said, and I really appreciate that. All right, guys, before we wrap up this show, I'm actually looking forward. I'm going to share this with our audience that Dan, myself, and Max will be meeting up together in Boston, and we're going to do a show together. So this should be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to doing this. I'm looking forward to doing this. The three of us have never been in the same room together. We will be next Friday, and I think we're going to do a show, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, the
And
room
I'm
may not
excited.
survive the three of us being in it at the same time. I don't know.
And one last shout out, because I'm wearing a special shirt right now, and it's I'm dedicating. Obviously, I'm going to dedicate this episode to my son Brady, who plays for Walpole Tennis, and I'm really into the season, so I want to wish him the best of luck the rest of his season. So far, 2-0. He's playing really good tennis, and I look forward to watching him play this week. 3 big matches for him, so it should be a lot of fun. Anyways.
I know. And Ross, sorry to interrupt you and keep us going, but we do have to credit Brady for intervening at the end of last season, saying to you that we needed to keep Cottage Chalk going because he thought it was such a great, because we don't, so you dedicate this episode to Brady, and that's lovely. But I know that the whole Fulham family would like to extend our thanks to Brady for making sure you still put out these episodes, mate.
Well, that's very nice of you, Dan. And to those who do not know, it was my son. I've got a lot of messages. When I made the decision to stop Cottage Talk, I was serious about it. I meant it. And then there was a huge outcry for me to continue. But honestly, it came down to my son being the one to basically say, you can't stop. You have to continue. And that was what really made the difference. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. All right. Mr. Cohen, I do want to say this. There is someone that is looking forward to seeing you. Not that he doesn't want to see Dan Crawford, but Brady has mentioned he's looking forward to seeing you.
I'm honored. I can't wait to see everyone in the Goldman family, and also Dan in Boston next Friday. It's going to be electric. Very, very. We could sell honestly tickets to a live show. People would pay to see these interactions.
We could have a Cottage Chalk Festival, a Fulham America Festival, for the World Cup next year. Why not,
Russ
man?
Dan banter.
Okay,
that's gonna be off the charts.
Well, we will be somewhere having lunch. Maybe I'll share that. And I don't know if anyone would show up.
Steady on.
Okay. Well, anyways, enough of that. We do have to wrap up this show. For Dan Crawford from Hammy.com and Max Cohen, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.